they're not getting into farming because you've got to be an idiot to be a farmer.
Why do you say that?
You lose money.
For the last, year or two, you've been really working on your farm, and you're clearing the brush and the overgrowth so you can see the land and the streams and what you're dealing with. Tell me why you're doing it.
I'm doing it to lower the fixed cost for potential young farmers, because the fixed cost is the main important thing. Any fixed cost takes away from your profit margin. So the lower we can drive the fixed costs, the more competitive they become. That's why I'm trying to remove the fiddlewood and all these different things so they don't have to pay to get it taken away. When I first started, it was obvious to me that the problems we had were the guinea grass, first of all, then the invasive species, and the sugarcane. For the guinea grass, it's 10 feet tall. When it blocks your view, you cannot think, without seeing something. It's hard to envision what it could mean for the future. Like if you have a water resource and you can't see it, then you can only imagine it. But if you have a water resource and you can see it, then you can start to think of how it can be used. So that was the guinea grass thing. It was too tall, it blocked view and stuff like that. The sugarcane was a physical barrier because it grows and it falls down. And in our particular case, the Oriental sweet potato farmer, when he clears the land and stuff like that, the soil moves down, the topsoil moves down, and gets trapped by the sugarcane. And what it does is it makes it very soggy, and you cannot imagine what it's like unless you stick your foot in there. And I've done that and found out I almost lost my boots because it was so soggy. So as a practical matter, I've learned from experience, all these different things.
So removing the sugarcane, then what will that do?
Well, once the sugarcane deteriorates, then the soil can drain normally. Right now, it's not draining normally. It's getting trapped by the sugarcane.
I know a lot of what you're doing, too, has to do with the fiddlewood trees and gunpowder trees and albizia, right?
Yeah. And what is interesting about that was they're invasives. They increase the fixed cost, and they throw shade on the land. So if they throw too much shade, you can't grow anything if it's standing there, big tree standing there, without costing you money to take it away. And you can't grow livestock to its maximum amount because it shades out the grasses. So those trees are a problem. So what happened, and this is by experience, is I happened to spray something, a guinea grass, and there was some fiddlewood that had fallen down, sprouting among the guinea grass. And then I found out, wow, the Roundup killed it. But I didn't think much of it until I started doing different things, and lo and behold, the thing snapped right off. In other words, it just died. The branches died. Then I started to deliberately spray it to see if it worked and how much would it work. Would it work for small? Would it work for big trees? How big? So all these different things took time to get the experience to see that sure enough, the Roundup actually could kill big trees. So it's a lot of experience involved, yeah? So once I found out that Roundup worked, it gave me the idea that, okay, we have something that could work. But what happened about a month ago was that I found out that when you spray the trees, it takes about 10 days for the leaves to fall off, the green leaves. And for the longest time, I never made that connection. And when I looked at it one day, I said, wait a minute, if in 10 days the leaves fell off, that probably means that the remaining leaves were being blocked by the leaves that fell off. So they didn't get sprayed. So if you spray it right now, what happens? And sure enough, 10 more days, and those leaves fell off. Now, what I found out was that it saved me so much time to understand that it just takes 10 days for the leaves to fall off. If you can hit all of these, otherwise, you don't fall off, you're going to hit the rest. But then I injected the trees with straight Roundup, and sure enough, it fell off in 10 days. But the thing about it is, because you're not spraying, there aren't any leaves left. All of the leaves fall off. That was a major, major change in my approach to everything, and it accelerated the control of all these invasive species and stuff like that. So now I feel real confident that I have this thing under control. It's just a matter of time now. And sharing the information with people so they can do it themselves, because that's my objective, yeah? is to share the information so people can understand where their situation is and do what they feel comfortable doing. That's my whole objective, yeah.
And after the leaves fall, the tree does not regrow, right? That's the point?
Yeah, it does not regrow it, and it's essentially dead when all the leaves fall off. And what that means is when it's dead, the deterioration starts to happen. And what happens is the smallest, tiniest branches fall off first, and it moves on the tree that way. But the time starts as soon as you kill the tree.
And tell me why you are not concerned about using Roundup. There's so much talk about it being dangerous and getting into the water. People worry about that. Tell me your thoughts about that.
Well, again, it's experience. Yeah, I've been a farmer for a long time. So I research it and there's an EPA, a place you can go and look and see what they say about it. But for me as a practical person, one of the things they tell you when you're farming is whenever you use, pesticides, stuff like that, you got to triple rinse and then you can take it to the dump. Now think about this. Triple rinse, the first rinse, you still can see the color. The second rinse, maybe a little bit. The third rinse, you see nothing because it's diluted. It's not getting stronger. It's diluting when you add water. So when people say, it's going to go in the water and it's going to go downstream and it's going to kill something. Come on, it's being diluted. How the hell is that going to happen? It doesn't make any sense. As it turns out, the components of Roundup, depending on what it is and stuff like that, but the half-life is very short relative to a lot of other things. Again, instead of magnifying, it's becoming much less and less and less as time goes on. So to argue about it, you spray something and it gets into the water and it goes downstream and it affects somebody else. I cannot see how that makes any common sense at all. Yeah, it does attach to the soil. And then however long it takes to the half-life to change into its original chemical components is very short, and it's not increasing, it's decreasing.
Tell me about the drilling. How do you drill into a tree? How much Roundup do you use? How did you figure out how to do that?
I essentially follow the use for different chemicals for different trees. So basically, it's the Hawaii Island Invasive Species Council. They do drilling, and not only that, mainland companies, states do a lot of drilling. So I researched that, see how they do it on the mainland, see how the Hawaii Island Invasive Species Council does it, and basically a half-inch drill, wooden drill, 2 inches long, angled downward so it doesn't just spill out, and then you squirt straight Roundup in there. And so I thought, okay, I'll follow the procedure. I'll just use straight Roundup. And sure enough, all the leaves fell off in 10 days. So now, why do I use Roundup? Because it's safer to me. Not only that, as a efficiency thing, I don't have to carry a whole bunch of different chemicals and different kinds of tools. Like if I'm spraying Roundup, it doesn't only kill the invasive tall albesias and gunpowder trees. It also kills the other invasives that are a problem at the same time. So, instead of trying to do this for this and that for that and choose when they're small, you use this, when they're bigger, you use that, this covers the whole gamut. It makes it much more efficient. I don't have to fill up my truck with a whole bunch of stuff.
I know you were telling me that a lot of people don't know the fiddlewood tree by name.
A lot of people don't even know that fiddlewood is a problem because it was brought in 1936. So what we're seeing now, the biggest ones, has been around for a while. And when you look at those are the ones, you find them along roads. What it is about the fiddlewood that's real concerning to me is that it falls down quite frequently. A branch will fall down, and then it'll pop up shoots. And then those shoots is a way of spreading the fiddlewood without seeds. So there's two ways to spread it. One is by seed, which birds eat and then they fly around and they spread it that way. The other one is the ones that are growing, the branch falls down and they stop. So when your eyes are trained to look for them, they're everywhere. So now the question becomes, what is the most efficient way to get rid of them? And the most efficient way is to catch them when they're small, because it doesn't take very much to get rid of them. You could even cut it off and it'll kill them. But the bigger it gets, the more sturdy it gets, and the more resilient it gets, the more you got to use appropriate chemicals and whatever.
And once you've gotten all your roads and streams throughout your farm cleared, you're going to thoughtfully plant certain things in certain spots?
Yeah, because it's not the idea of getting rid of everything, fiddlewood and albizia and all that stuff. retain certain ones of the fiddlewood on purpose so that it provides the shade. And then later on, I'm thinking, okay, how do we then go and plant something that's native alongside the fiddlewood and get rid of the fiddlewood later? So it's not, oh, we hate it and we'll get rid of them all. No. Understand what the problem is, fix the problem, and if they have some pluses, take advantage of it. Here's a good example. You know Kopakoel Homestead Road? I spray those fiddlewood on the side of the road, but in the places where there's no other trees, what I do is I just spray the branches that are overhanging the road that can fall on the road. And what that does is it weights the tree on the other side.
Oh.
Yeah, so it gets rid of the danger, but it leans the tree the other way.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
And it's all my experience, you know. It takes time, so it took me 2 years to figure this all out because I'm doing it by hand, you know, and thinking about it, you know, all the time.
And you said you might consider planting native Hawaiian plants.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, what is happening, I just had a meeting with Warren Lee, yeah, at the end of Sugar Mill Road down by the ocean where they're generating electricity from eucalyptus. I asked him, can you use a eucalyptus that's up on? And he said, yeah, they could. That's the big fixed cost for incoming young farmers to get rid of eucalyptus trees. Now, if they could take that, oh man. So the next question is, what could we plant instead if they needed a windbreak, let's say, and along marginal lands? Bamboo would be a good thing. Because for marginal lands, you could plant the bamboo and still, you know, if we can get a time where we can get it processed, then the farmer could make extra money doing that. And as well as have a windbreak. And it doesn't take much time. It takes deliberate understanding of what to do because you got to be able to rotate them and you got to be able to control them so that when you harvest it at a specific times and, you know, there's a procedure that makes sense.
It really makes such a significant difference once these junk trees are removed from the side of the road. And I found it amazing to see. I think people who don't live here don't realize how fast everything grows here. Weeds and grass and trees growing where they aren't wanted and how thick and overwhelming they get and how fast.
Yeah, it is incredible. It's amazing to see. But then again, you know, we have brains. We can figure out what to do without hurting ourselves, making it easier for next generations, which is the whole idea, yeah?
What do you see now when you look and you see these places that you've cleared?
Just in the last 2 weeks, I've sprayed Roundup, and 2 springs, I did not see the stream the whole time I've been farming. Only now I get to see it. You know, and it's incredible because there's laws that say if a spring originates on your property and joins to a stream on your property, the spring source, you can do whatever you want with the water. Mm-hmm. Now that is significant because now all of a sudden, imagine you have water. You can make decisions using the water as long as it's on your property where it joins the stream. So what did you do with the water? Put it that way. There are any number of things people could do. I don't have all the answers, but it's what the ancient Hawaiians really valued. The water. The water was life.
And the reason you're talking about this now is because clearing everything is where you're identifying these streams and being able to get to them, right?
Exactly. Once your feet can touch the ground, then you can move around. But you know, some of this thing is so piled on stuff and vines and things. When you put your foot down, you can't feel the ground. It's dangerous to walk around not being able to touch the ground.
Yeah.
That's why I spend a lot of time doing this, making sure I take a battery run lopper, and I make sure that I see the ground. And I cut them up into small pieces so that they dry up and snap when I step on it.
You said you've really covered your entire farm now, right? Everything that's not planted, 498 acres of farm?
Yeah.
That's just amazing, and you've done it manually by yourself, and you are surprisingly 80 years old. I just think that's wonderful. What do you think about doing all this at 80 years old? Does that surprise you like it surprises everyone else?
Not, I don't know, you know. When I look at it, because I was a weightlifter, 10 years or more ago, competitive weightlifter, I know what it's like to lift weights. And now what I did find out when I went back to lifting was, wow, here I am, 79 years old, and I can see my muscles getting stronger. So it's not like you get old and you cannot do anything. You actually can if you can figure out how to do these things. So what I do is, okay, what is my objective? My objective is to be able to walk around so that I can do what I'm doing now. So I train that way. I train my legs. I do all the different things I need to do in the gym to be able to do what I do on the farm. And that really works out well because it makes me so happy. I get up every day happy.
That's great. What's next in this project?
Oh boy. So this is just the first part of it. The main part of it is to see how we can start to produce enough food. We bring in more than 85% of our food using fossil fuels from away. What we need to do is become food self-sufficient. And to become food self-sufficient, we need to help the farmers make money. And because we're a small state with different topography, different environment, we cannot operate on a large volume because we don't have large flat areas. So what we need to do to get resilience, we need to have multiple income streams. So if we do that, and if we do it in a clever way, we can make a good living on 10 acres. And if we can do that, and the people doing that can show the kids that it works, then the kids will start to think, and the narrative is, what can be more honorable than feeding your own people? Because we're not right now. And that's what the objective is to try to figure out how we get from clearing the land and doing all this different stuff we're doing to getting farmers to be self-sufficient, given the different resources we have, so that they can influence their kids. Because once we get the kids to accept that, they would come at it naturally, because I don't think they're dumb. They're not getting into farming because you've got to be an idiot to be a farmer.
Why do you say that?
You lose money.
Ah.
So we got to change that so that it becomes, fulfilling inside. And when that happens, oh man, that's what the objective is. If the farmer makes money, the farmer going farm.
Thank you, Richard. This is really great, and I love seeing what you're doing on the farm. And everybody else, thanks for watching, and we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Richard Ha's Blog. Ahui ho.